Welcome to you today, right now. If you feel weary, rest your feet and put down your cares, if only for an hour. If you feel joyful, let your soul dance and be infectious in the best kind of way. But however you feel, wherever you are on life's journey, whatever you want to become in this oh so wondrous and struggling world, welcome. Welcome to you today, right now. Come, let us worship together. I invite you to rise in body and spirit as we join our voices in our opening hymn, number 361 from the Gray Hymnal, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. And I'll shout out the lyrics if you're brave. If you want to. Please remain standing as Gail and Dave Sanders light our chalice. These words are the candle lighting from the Passover Haggadah, reading 453 in our Gray Hymnal. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers, to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. It is now time for our story for all ages. I'm going to tell a kid's version. Thank you for coming. I'm going to tell a kid's version of the Passover story this morning, written by a Jewish person named Jordana Horn for a Jewish audience. I have modified its text slightly to account for the fact that our gathering this morning is more diverse. This story begins with a guy named Joseph. Joseph did incredible things for the Egyptians, like saving them from an epic famine, and his family came and settled in Egypt. But after a lot of time passed, a pharaoh, king of Egypt, rose to power who didn't know Joseph and who didn't think that any of the stuff that he had done for the Egyptians was important. The Hebrews, who weren't considered Jewish at this point because they hadn't yet gotten to the Torah from Mount Sinai, became the slaves of the Egyptians. What does it mean to be a slave? It means you work hard all the time, but you don't get paid. Nor can you rest when you want, nor get to do what you want. Instead, Pharaoh, who was a really not nice person, was in charge of deciding what happened to the Hebrews. And Pharaoh was terrible to them. And when he heard that someone predicted that one day a baby boy would be born who would free the Hebrews from slavery, he freaked out and ordered all Hebrew baby boys to be killed. Like I said, terrible person. So a Hebrew mother, Yocheved, tried to save her baby from death. She was desperate. She made a basket and put her little boy in it and set it floating on down the river. She didn't know what would happen, but she hoped that, somehow, God would take care of her baby. The baby's older sister, Miriam, followed the basket to see where it went. And do you know who found it? Pharaoh's daughter. She said she would make the baby hers, telling the baby she was his mommy, and that she would call the boy Moses, which means taken out of the river. Moses grew up in Pharaoh's family, not knowing he was Hebrew. Still, he didn't feel good about people making other people slaves. One day, he saw an Egyptian taskmaster beating a Hebrew slave. Moses thought it was wrong and tried to stop it, but he ended up killing the Egyptian. He knew he was in big trouble, so he ran away from home into the desert. While Moses was in the desert, he became a shepherd, a person who raises sheep, and got married and started a new life. But one day he saw a bush that was on fire, but didn't burn up. That was weird. He went closer, and God started talking to him out of the burning bush. God told him that he needed to go back to Egypt and tell Pharaoh to let my people go. So Moses went back to Egypt. He joined up with his brother Aaron, and together they told Pharaoh to free the Hebrew slaves. But Pharaoh said, "No way." Moses warned Pharaoh that God would make terrible plagues, huge problems that would hurt the Egyptians if Pharaoh didn't let the Hebrews go. Pharaoh didn't listen, and bad things happened to the Egyptians. The water in Egypt turned to blood. The land was covered with frogs, then lice. There were beasts roaming everywhere, and then all the cows got sick and died. People got boils, weird bumps all over their bodies. Hail fell from the sky, bugs were everywhere, there was darkness. It seemed like night never ended. And then came the worst plague, the killing of the firstborns of Egypt, just like Pharaoh had tried to do to the firstborn Hebrews. Pharaoh couldn't take it anymore. Finally, he said, "Yes, the Hebrews can go." Moses and the Hebrews knew that Pharaoh might change his mind. So they fled their homes, packing as much as they could, as quickly as they could. They were in such a hurry, they didn't even have time to wait for their bread to rise. Remember, there were no grocery stores at this time. And this is why the Jewish people eat matzah during Passover. Sure enough, when the Hebrews got to the Red Sea, they turned around and saw Pharaoh and his army chasing them, trying to capture them. The Hebrews were really scared and worried. So God told Moses to stretch out his arm over the sea. And then a miracle happened. The sea split into two halves. The Hebrews walked through on dry land, but when the Egyptians tried to follow them, the path closed up again, drowning the army. The Hebrews were safe and free. They wandered in the desert for 40 years as they made their way to Mount Sinai, picked up the 10 Commandments and a new relationship with God, and set off to Israel. Moses died before he got there, though. Jewish people tell this story every year at Passover during a meal called the Seder, because it is important to bring home the idea that they were once slaves and they are now free. Thank you for listening. Please remain seated for our prayer hymn, number 205 in the gray hymnal, Amazing Grace. In the silence that follows the spoken prayer, you are invited to come forward and light a candle for any joy or concern that you hold in your heart this morning. O great Spirit of interdependence, which art within us, among us, and around us, many be thy names. May you come to us that we may share our planet as we should. Give us this day our daily compassion, and may you care for us that we may care for others. And lead us not into our egos, but deliver us from isolation. For ours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. I will light a candle for the joys and concerns of those beloveds joining us virtually, and for all else that we may hold in our hearts and our minds this morning. If your heart is hurting, know that your community is here to help, as is Reverend Jane. Please reach out with any needs. Every once in a while, though I can't remember the last time we've done this, we sing hymn number 402 from the great hymnal, titled "From You I Receive," as part of an offering ritual. I'd like to do that again this morning, and here's how I'd like to do it. Please remain seated and sing as you are willing and able. Stephen will play through the tune once. It's really short. Then we will sing the verse 3 times. The words are, "From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live." The first time, in your heart, sing it to the people at this worship service. The second time, in your heart, sing it to the people of the world. And the third time, in your heart, sing it to that which is most sacred to you. To Allah, to God, to Spirit of Life, to the universe. You get the picture. As necessary, Stephen will continue to play the tune after we sing the 3 verses. And while he does so, feel free to hum the tune as we finish the ritual. For those of you watching the service online, you may contribute to a virtual offering plate using the donate button on our website, or by mailing a check to the new church office. The address will be posted in the chat. Everybody got it? For all that you do and all that you do for our church and its wider concerns, we give thanks. Our first reading this morning is the poem Ozymandias by Percy Bysshe Shelley. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things. The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal, these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretched far away. Our second reading comes from the King James Version of the Bible, from the book of Exodus, chapter 12, verse 14. And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. Ye shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. Please rise as you are willing and able to join in the singing of hymn number 350 from the great hymnal, The Ceaseless Flow of Endless Time. It's time for your scheduled maintenance. Every once in a while, I receive a missive bearing these or similar words, usually from an auto dealership or the dentist. My reaction upon receiving such has typically fallen squarely in the region between meh and bleh. I have never thought, yes, time to drop some serious bucks on the car. I have never thought, hot diggity-doo, I'm a-going to the dentist. And then, on Friday morning, as I was writing this sermon, I was interrupted by an email alert from Chris Tasowski. Subject, annual congregational meeting. I believe that the pulpit is a place for honesty, and so I must admit that I audibly sighed when I parsed this alert. And then, recognizing both the irony of the situation and its value as sermon fodder, laughed and threw it in. No, maintenance is neither glamorous nor exciting, nor even interesting, and it is often expensive or inconvenient or both. But we generally understand that it is important, and we know that it is something that really should be done at some point by someone, eventually. Maintenance. This morning I'm going to talk about maintenance. I'm going to tell you why it is so dang hard. And I'm going to talk about one of the greatest maintenance success stories ever. And then we'll have a brief wrap-up about where we might fit into all of this. And that's the plan. So let's go. Let's begin with bridges. Big bridges. Bridges that cross significant bodies of water or wide canyons, such as, say, San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge. The paint on the Golden Gate Bridge, color International Orange, helps to protect it from rusting and ruin from San Francisco's famous, frequent, and highly corrosive saltwater fogs. The word on the street is that it is painted from one end to the other, and then, as soon as it is finished, the painting starts over again. It turns out this isn't completely or exactly true. The bridge is always being painted, and its rivets and panels are being replaced, etc., 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 but not from one end to the other. The actual process involves continual inspections, and the places that need it the most get the attention. There are 28 painters, 13 iron workers, 3 pusher iron workers, whatever they may be, 5 painter laborers, and that's just the painting team. There are also engineers, electricians, carpenters, and many other laborers. And although the bridge was completed in 1937, the maintenance team was not formed until 1965, when the bridge was visibly corroding. I'm going to repeat that last bit. The maintenance team was not formed until 1965, when the bridge was visibly corroding. The Golden Gate Bridge is not even 100 years old. Will it survive for 200 years? For 500 years? Yes, maintenance is hard, and not just for large bridges. A city's infrastructure, a house, a car, your teeth. And this difficulty is not just limited to things physical. Maintaining relationships, which are metaphorical bridges, between nations and between people is difficult. Maintaining all sorts of organizations, large and small, is difficult. Why? I'll tell you why. In a word, physics. More specifically, the second law of thermodynamics. One version of which, from the Wikipedia, states, it's going to be a quiz, so listen closely. The entropy of isolated systems left to spontaneous evolution cannot decrease. Huh? Aren't you glad you came to church today? Let's see if we can make this a little more palatable. Entropy is a measure of the disorder, the chaos, of a physical system. The more entropy there is in a system, the more chaotic it is. The second law is often inaccurately paraphrased as entropy increases. That is, disorder increases. And while this is a physical law, a physical property of physical systems, it seems to, as the young people say, hit on many levels and apply to all sorts of systems. I'd wager that you felt this to be true in your general experience. I know I have. Stuff gets dirty. Stones get scattered. You open up a closet and holy moly, what happened here? But as I said, entropy increases is not accurate. There is more to the second law. It is more accurate to say that entropy increases unless work is done. Entropy increases unless work is done. It takes work to clean things. It takes work to gather stones. It takes work to organize the contents of the closet. And what is this work of which I speak? Well, in today's sermon context, my answer is maintenance. And so I shall rephrase the second law of thermodynamics thus. Any system, be it physical, organizational, relational, etc., 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 will fail without regular maintenance. One could argue that the modifier regular is redundant here, but I leave it in for emphasis because 1 millisecond after you do the work of maintenance, the forces of chaos are at it again. They are, in their very essence, relentless, and they will outlive you and your progeny. So let us give a shout out and our gratitude to those who do the maintenance of our modern world. The cleaners, the bridge crews, the road crews, the repairers, the accountants, the administrators, the trash haulers, the dentists, etc., etc., etc. We rarely see the results of your labors, but we reap its benefits in the large, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. From you we receive, and to you we give. Together we share, and from this we live. And now, let us turn our attention to what I believe to be one of the great maintenance success stories. A human endeavor that has survived and thrived for thousands of years. The Jewish Passover holiday. And this day shall be unto you a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. Ye shall keep it a feast day by an ordinance forever. Every part of the Passover celebration is meaningful, beginning with the removal of all leavening from one's home and the eating of matzah, the bread of affliction, for 7 days, generating empathy for the Hebrews who so long ago had to leave their leavening and ovens behind. For 7 days, no work is to be undertaken, except as is needed to feed oneself and family, giving celebrants time to consider both the evils of slavery and the responsibilities of freedom. On the first night, a ritual meal called the Seder is prepared. Everything said and done at the Seder is prescribed by an ancient text called the Haggadah. The story of the Hebrews' escape from slavery in Egypt is retold, and each element of the meal symbolizes a part of the story. Now, I learned from the Wikipedia that there are lots of variants on the Passover rituals, depending on all sorts of things. For instance, Passover lasts 8 days outside of Israel. But the heart of the tradition, the celebration and the retelling of the story of the escape from slavery, is and has been shared since the 5th century before the Common Era. That's at least 2,700 years. Ain't that something? I'll go so far as to say that it is a miracle of maintenance. Compare and contrast to Shelley's poem Ozymandias. Ozymandias, whose remains are naught but the busted pieces of a statue lying in the desert, with the deliciously ironic inscription, "Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair." Here's the thing. Ozymandias was a king, even king of kings. But a king is an individual, one person. And one person, however powerful, cannot stand against the second law of thermodynamics. Not for thousands of years. No way. Not even close. As we learned just a few minutes ago, even maintaining the 87-year-old Golden Gate Bridge requires a massive team and the commitment of the people of California. Commitment. There's a word. Indeed, it is only through the commitment of a people that a system can be maintained for any non-trivial amount of time. And this commitment of a people must be earned, and it must somehow be transmitted across generations. And it sure as heck doesn't happen automatically, because our natural tendency is simply not to bother, especially if we cannot see any short-term results. A system worth maintaining must be important, even holy, to us. The Jewish people have succeeded, arguably wildly succeeded, with Passover. Here's a fun fact before I move on to the wrap-up. Ozymandias is the Greek name for the Egyptian pharaoh Ramesses II, who, inasmuch as these things can be historically verified, is believed to be the pharaoh who enslaved the Hebrews in the book of Exodus. I'd love to accept erudition and cleverness points for having known this before I picked Shelley's poem as a reading. But to be honest, it was merely a happy accident, a bit of entropy that broke my way. And what about us? And by that I mean as UUs, as Unitarian Universalists. Though we come from older traditions of Unitarianism and Universalism, our denomination is quite young, having been formed in 1960. So we don't have a thousands-year-old tradition like Passover, but we do have our own rituals of memory, like the lovely flower communion given to us by Norbert Čapek in 1923. And we have our more routine rituals that we perform during worship service. The chalice, the hymns, the prayer, the sermon. All these rituals serve as tools for our spiritual maintenance, and we gather together to do them. Week after week, year after year. And maybe, just maybe, one day we will see that we have maintained our own tradition for 2,700 years. Maybe. It's up to us. Amen. Please rise and body your spirit to join our voices in hymn number 1028 from the Teal hymnal, A Fire of Commitment. Go forth. Acknowledge the holy work of those who maintain, and do the holy work of maintenance. Brush and floss at least twice daily, and I'll see you at our annual meeting. Go in peace, and amen.